On a rain-slicked spring night in 2024, 7 miles north of downtown Davenport, Iowa, a seemingly ordinary car crash quickly escalated into a horrifying discovery. Deputies from the Scott County Sheriff's Office responded to reports of a vehicle striking a pole. Mercifully, no one appeared to be injured in the immediate aftermath. However, what initially seemed like a routine case of driving under the influence swiftly took a darker, more disturbing turn. As the disoriented driver slowly began to regain his sobriety, his fragmented memories returned, compelling him to speak. What he revealed left the deputies horrified. This is Tony Stone, and today we're returning to Iowa, where a shocking sequence of events led law enforcement to a gruesome murder scene hidden within a Parkview apartment complex. No one can ever know for certain the full, unvarnished truth of what took place inside that apartment on that spring night. Yet, prosecutors believe the accused divulged just enough information to piece together a chilling narrative. Let's delve into the details. At precisely 1:47 a.m. on March 13th, 2024, Lieutenant Thomas Leonard of the Scott County Sheriff's Office was called to the scene of a car crash near the entrance of Davenport Municipal Airport. A caller had reported a silver Impala had collided with a concrete median before smashing into a light pole. Upon arrival, the lieutenant found the vehicle's driver beginning to regain consciousness. The man, seemingly uninjured, was deeply incoherent, and the potent, unmistakable smell of alcohol emanated from both the vehicle and its occupant. "Look at me. Are you all right? You're in an accident. Do you know that?" "Where were you heading to?" "Do you know where you're at all or anything?" "Yeah, I was at the auditorium." "Wait, where were you heading?" "You think the auditorium." "The auditorium. Yeah. What's your name?" "Christopher." Chris B. "Hall." "Okay." 31-year-old local resident Christopher B. Hall was unable to explain where he was or where he had come from. At one point, disoriented, he even suggested he was at the hospital. "But you say you don't remember where you were coming from?" "Nope. Not at all. Nope." "Girlfriend's house? Your house? Anybody's house?" "Not really sure." "Okay. So, do you know where you're at right now, hospital?" "I'm pretty sure." "Your hospital is where you're thinking you're at?" "Yeah. It's over here." "Sure." "You're over by the airport." "Oh, okay. Do you know how you got there?" "No." "No. Okay. All right. Did he say his name's Chris?" "Yeah." While attempting to ascertain if Chris had sustained any injuries, the lieutenant peered inside the car for items of interest. There were no visible liquor bottles, nor any signs of drug use. However, a chilling detail caught his eye near Chris's bare feet. Lay a knife. "So where are you bleeding at down here? Your foot's all got blood on it. Where's your shoes at?" "Do you know where your shoes are at?" "Oh, okay." "Did you just jump in the vehicle first?" "Yeah. Where'd you leave from then?" "Not sure." "Not sure. All right, there's a knife down by your foot, so I want to make sure I remove that." "Okay." Rain lashed down with blistering winds outside. Lieutenant Leonard removed the knife from the vehicle and placed it on top of the car. As the rain beat down, blood began to rinse off the blade. Chris appeared to have a cut on his side, not a significant one, and officers, based on his disoriented condition, initially speculated this small injury was accidental. At that time, there was no reason for further concern. The registration for the silver Impala listed Chris B. Hall as its owner. Deputies located his address at the Crestview apartment complex in Parkview. Chris lived there with his girlfriend, 31-year-old Taylor Escontrias. A deputy knocked on the door to Unit 4, but received no answer. No sound emanated from inside the apartment. A phone number for Taylor, when called, also went unanswered. From the exterior, there was nothing to raise immediate suspicion, and the deputy did not attempt to force entry. Instead, He drove back towards Davenport, heading for the hospital where Chris had been taken for treatment of his minor cuts and to address what appeared to be a severe case of alcohol intoxication. At the hospital, Chris was read his rights. The deputy also performed a sobriety test, a vertical gaze nystagmus (VGN) test, observing Chris's eye movements as he followed a stimulus. At first, Chris struggled not to move his head as instructed. When he was able to follow instructions, the deputy noted clear signs of inebriation. A blood alcohol test would later return a shocking result, 0.3, nearly 4 times the legal limit of 0.08. Doctors found no serious physical injuries. No impact to his head, no concussion. His diagnosis was simply alcohol intoxication, the cut to his side, and slightly low potassium levels. Chris's communication was gradually improving, but his memory remained fragmented, stubbornly resisting clarity. As Deputy Turner inquired further about the knife, Chris, in turn, began to ask unsettling questions. Was there blood on his hands when they brought him into the hospital? Had the deputy checked on his girlfriend? Taylor. He insisted she wouldn't have answered in the middle of the night. But his insistence grew. Deputies needed to return to the apartment, to check on her, to see if she was alive. We went there and knocked, and she didn't answer. We know the door code and everything. Thank you. What makes you concerned that she's not? I don't know. Okay. Something in my mind makes me feel like I did something. I don't think I would have ever done anything like that to her. Because I'm not like that. Were you guys having a fight earlier today? Oh, okay. Is it just kind of some thoughts you're having just because we know she didn't answer yet? I'm really fucking scared that. I have these pictures in my head that I beat her at the baseball bat. Okay. And I know that's incriminating myself, but... Well, at this point, it's for the safety of everyone involved. I need to make sure that she's okay. Nope. I can send another deputy up there to see if we can go check for her. Okay, let me get a hold of my boss and just have him go up there and check on her. I'm sure she's okay. You good? What's going on? He might have killed his girlfriend. I don't know yet. He just told me, he said, I need you guys. I need to know if she's alive. What are you talking about? We just tried to go knock. He gave me the door, his address and the door code. Hang on. He said he gave me the address and the door code, and he said images are going through my head of me beating her to death with a baseball bat. The chilling confession prompted immediate action. Lieutenant Leonard met the deputy back at the Crestview Apartments. This time, they tried the door to Unit 4 and found it unlocked. However, as they pushed it open, there was resistance from something blocking the entrance on the other side. That resistance was caused by Taylor. Just inside the threshold in the doorway, they discovered the young mother. She was deceased, the victim of what appeared to be a brutal, frenzied attack inside the home. She had sustained injuries from a bat, a knife, and a screwdriver, nearly 60 injuries in total. The area of the struggle was not isolated to one location inside the 2-bedroom apartment. There were signs that Taylor had been injured in multiple locations in the hallway, the kitchen, the living room, and finally, at the doorway. A bloodied baseball bat lay on the couch. In the kitchen, law enforcement found the tip of a screwdriver next to the sink. They had already recovered the knife from Chris's car, and though some of the blood had washed away in the rain, DNA testing confirmed a match to Taylor from the blade. Taylor Escontrias was the cherished daughter of Michael McKee and Lisa Rosenberg, born and raised in Davenport, Iowa, and a graduate of Rockridge High School. She was a loving mother to 2 children, Lila and Julian. Taylor has been described as a beautiful soul known for her caring nature, her infectious sense of humor, and her artistic talents. Her mother fondly recalled, "Taylor was amazing. She was spunky. She was unique." A family also remembered her as a very honest person who loved a good laugh, adored cooking, and cherished time with family and friends. Unfortunately, The 31-year-old also struggled with addiction throughout her adult life. It was through her courageous journey of seeking treatment that Taylor had encountered Christopher B. Hall, a sometimes employed machine operator, also from Davenport. The two met while in a program for alcohol addiction at Country Oaks, a rehabilitation facility in Buffalo. While in rehab, they attended daily courses, confronted their addictions, and developed a deep friendship. Their relationship slowly blossomed into a romantic one, and they publicly announced they were a couple in October 2023. They had also recently moved in together. Tragically, the day following the completion of their program at Country Oaks, both Chris and Taylor broke their sobriety and were drinking again. Inside the Crestview apartment, detectives found only scattered clues indicating what had taken place in the moments before Taylor was violently attacked. Away from the central living room and kitchen area, much of the apartment showed no signs of the murder. A spare room held storage items and totes. Two closets in the bedroom contained nothing of value. There were items on nightstands and a bag on the floor. The bathroom showed no signs of a cleanup. However, in the main bedroom, next to a pillow on the bed, lay a gallon bottle of Hawkeye vodka, appearing empty. A small blood stain, likely a transfer print from a finger, was visible on the top sheet. The cap to the vodka bottle was also on the bed, as well as Chris's cell phone. Taylor's second cell phone was located in the kitchen. On the night she died, Taylor reached out on Facebook Messenger to two friends, seeking help. She messaged Michael Holan, asking if he could drive over to her home and pick her up a favor he had performed for Taylor more than once in the past. Michael spoke directly with Taylor that night and described her as emotional, suspecting she had been drinking. Michael himself had consumed a couple of drinks and, rightly, refused to get behind the wheel. So, he looked up an Uber to send to Taylor, but the cost, $150 for the trip to his place, was unaffordable. He got off the phone, promising to come and get her the next day. But, he said, she never called him in the morning to confirm as they had agreed. He learned of her death that afternoon. Taylor's second, chilling call for help was to an old high school classmate named Nick Seaman. It was past 11:00 p.m. when she sent him the message. Nick did not see it until the following morning around 7:00 a.m. Taylor's message read, "If I get killed, it was Chris," followed by, "Don't reply right now, he's nuts." Despite this prophetic message, Taylor never dialed 911. Christopher B. Hall was arrested while still in the hospital. He was processed and then brought to the station to sit down with detectives. He was sober by the time he was questioned. Without an attorney present, Chris began to offer scattered, inconsistent recollections. Over the course of a few hours, he would tell two different versions of events. In his first account, he claimed the two were playing a card game called Garbage when Taylor began experiencing what he called an emotional breakdown. He managed to calm her, and they lay down on the bed together to talk. In this version, Chris claimed he could not recall anything between the time they spoke in the bedroom and the attack at the doorway with the baseball bat. I don't know what she was doing with it at first. She was just kind of freaking out. I tried to take it from her, and then she ran out of the kids' living room. And I don't know how much of this next part is true or false, but I remember grabbing the baseball bat and hitting her with it. Okay, now I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what happened from the time that we went to bed to the time that I hit her with the baseball bat. We changed sides, and we were talking. We lay down, and we're still talking. And the next thing I remember is hitting her with the baseball bat. He could not recall the exact sequence of events, only fragmented bits and pieces. When it was over, he just left. All I know is I think I was debating, but I was just going and laying down or grabbing my keys and leaving. So I must have grabbed my keys and left. And that's the last thing I remember before waking up in the hospital. Chris could not tell detectives what had instigated the attack against Taylor, though he offered that the couple did have problems and that Taylor often made him feel like She always kind of made it seem like I wasn't a part of this relationship. And she would say to her every other day that it's a one-sided relationship. And she always talks and makes me feel like sigh. But I loved her, you know, so I just was trying to work on things with her. Detectives strategically left Chris alone in the room for some time while they strategized and decided how to proceed. Chris's recollections to that point did not match the evidence at the scene. Specifically, he did not account for evidence in the kitchen or in the hallway that suggested the attack started elsewhere and moved throughout the unit, finally ending at the doorway. He recalled only a brief encounter with the knife, namely when he was cut on the side. He did not remember a screwdriver at all. I've been drinking this way my entire life. Why would I ever fucking kill her? Obviously, because of the alcohol. But why? Like, literally, why? We've drank that 100 times before and I've never done that. Why now? Why would I do this? When detectives returned, they pressured Chris to fill in the gaps. At that point, he began to speculate. Maybe he stabbed her at the doorway to put her out of her misery after the initial attack had gone too far. He suggested that this could have been what happened, as his memory from that night was mostly a blur until he awoke in the hospital. Have you remembered anything else while you've been sitting here? I wish I could. I don't know what the fuck happened, why it happened. I can't believe everything that you've said. There's just still a couple of things that aren't really lining up. So there's multiple stab wounds that are not just for that. Okay. Is there any reason that there would be any blood on anything else other than a knife in the baseball bat? A knife in the baseball bat. Other than that, I have no idea. I have no reason to believe there would be, but I couldn't tell you because I have no idea. How about a screwdriver? I'm not sure it's possible, but I couldn't tell you. I honestly don't remember anything about this case. Christopher B. Hall stood trial for first-degree murder, a charge that requires the state to prove he acted with malice and forethought. His defense essentially conceded the key elements of the crime. He had killed Taylor. The medical examiner had found one of the many blows she sustained had killed her, but could not definitively pinpoint which one. Chris had been, however, blackout drunk, or at least he claimed to have been. His team argued that he did not possess the mental capacity to form intent or forethought to willfully commit the murder. He was simply too intoxicated. Nonetheless, the jury would ultimately decide if he had committed first-degree murder. In a strange, and perhaps unnecessary, analogy, Public Defender Leanne Strigel opened by telling jurors about the life and biography of music icon Tina Turner. She went on to explain Tina's reasoning for not attending her mother's funeral, arguing it wasn't due to a lack of love or respect. But quite the opposite. The stretched analogy concluded that establishing the intent behind an action is complicated. One of the state's requirements is to prove the intention of Mr. B. Now, intention is very difficult to prove, getting inside the mind of somebody. Just like getting inside of the mind of Tina Turner and why she would choose not to go to her mother's funeral. The prosecution countered that the absence of evidence of Chris planning the murder, or any indication of a cover-up, did not negate the fact that he could have contemplated his actions. There was no legal requirement that he remember his crime in order to be convicted. The sheer number of injuries Taylor sustained indicated the prolonged duration of the attack, allowing for many opportunities to pause and stop the attack entirely. Each injury, they argued, was a deliberate decision Chris made. The jury could also infer malice and deliberation by his use of 3 distinct weapons: the bat, the knife, and the screwdriver. Though these were all items sourced from within the apartment, he still needed to switch out the implement he was using at least twice throughout the course of the attack. Finally, the physical evidence clearly showed the incident occurred across multiple locations within the apartment, requiring movement from one area to another. These movements, the prosecution argued, were further proof that the murder was deliberate and willful. He also had the presence of mind to leave the scene of the crime after the fact. an indication he was aware of what he had done. Dr. Dennis Klein, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy on Taylor, testified that her cause of death was multiple blunt force injuries. Two opposing views emerged from the doctor's testimony. In the state's view, Taylor's death was the result of a culmination of her injuries. He could not pinpoint the single fatal blow. The state emphasized the location of the wounds caused by the knife. Those Chris had speculated he delivered last by the doorway. But the doctor also told the jury that some of Taylor's impact wounds could have been caused by a fall. There was no way medically to rule this out. He also confirmed that Taylor's toxicology returned a blood alcohol level of 0.338, which would have rendered her physically unstable. In such a scenario, it was plausible. The defense would argue that even a single initial blow could have caused her death. All subsequent injuries after the fact would then be irrelevant to the murder charge, and the implied intent of delivering each individual blow would also be irrelevant. Chris took the stand to testify in his own defense. It was perhaps his best and only chance to frame the crime as one of passion, not contemplation. Under oath, he changed his story yet again. He now claimed he no longer remembered using the knife, despite his previous speculation about why he used this weapon being a key element in his interrogation. A year later, Chris had managed to forget these key details. The last thing that I remember is laying down to go to bed with her. Or not laying down to go to bed, but laying down in bed talking to her is the last thing that I consciously remember doing. So you remember Taylor getting a knife. You tried to take it away from her. She sliced you or slashed you with it, and you shoved her into a wall before getting the baseball bat. Correct. None of that was true, no. You made it up. Correct. But you did hit Taylor with a baseball bat. As far as memory goes, yes. When he hit her with that bat, Taylor was facing away from you as far as memory. I can construe. Sorry. I apologize. As far as my memory withstands, yes. When you told Detective Rowling that you remembered stabbing Taylor, did you remember stabbing Taylor? At the time, yes. And you told Detective Rowling you couldn't say why you stabbed her? Correct. But you thought maybe it was because Taylor was still moving, and you might as well put her out of her misery given how much damage you'd already done to her. Correct. That was what was said. In closing, Chris's lead attorney, Miguel Puentes, applied another strange analogy, counter to what the state was arguing. He asserted that each of Taylor's nearly 60 wounds were not the result of 60 separate, deliberate decisions made by Chris B. Hall. Instead, he claimed that some actions simply continue as one continuous decision, like walking or eating. Of course, in this case, it was murder, so I just want you to think of just an activity. Any activity. Doesn't matter what it is. And the question is like, once you're in it, are you just in it like, are you just doing it, or are you kind of like, are you considering, are you then contemplating and recontemplating every step in that process? We'll treat it like a walk in the park, right? Are you contemplating each step, or did you contemplate the walk? And then every step is not being deliberated and is not being premeditated. That is just happening. That is in the action that you're already in. Another example is just eating food. Each bite. Are you contemplating each time, or are you just doing it? Puentes finished by suggesting that the murder technically happened quickly, with the fatal incident occurring in the kitchen, where the trail in the apartment indicated the attack had started. He asserted that there was no indication Taylor was moving around the apartment independently after that point. I think the incident happened in the kitchen. I think she died in the kitchen. I think that that's what the evidence supports. I think it happened fast. And again, I think it happened in the kitchen. Now, any offenses that occur after someone is deceased is not murder in the first, murder in the second. Voluntary or involuntary. It's just not. You can't form intent after the fact. That is a separate crime and a crime that has not been charged. Scott County Assistant Attorney Brett Larson countered that there was no evidence to support that theory of the crime. However, there was an abundance of signs at the scene that the murder had taken place as they posited. Indeed, as Chris's second version offered to detectives had outlined. When pressed, Chris speculated about his actions and the reasons behind them. When he told detectives that he might have stabbed Taylor to put her out of her misery, Larson emphasized, "That's the defendant telling you that he stabbed her to put her out of her misery. That version of events, that story, that makes sense based on the evidence you've seen in this case. It doesn't. What story does make sense, the story, or what the defendant told Detective Rowling after he came clean and said, 'Oh, the first story, I made all that up.' After that point, what the defendant told you was what happened. That story matches up with the physical evidence that we see on scene." The jury returned with their verdict after less than 2 hours of deliberation. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of domestic abuse assault with the intent to inflict serious injury. The conviction for first-degree murder comes with an automatic life sentence without the possibility of parole. This sentence will be handed down to Christopher B. Hall at a hearing currently scheduled for May 30th, 2025. 2 family members, including Taylor's mother, Lisa, are expected to deliver impact statements at that hearing. One day at a time, lots of prayers. I have a lot of support. We have a lot of support in our family. You know, we got family and friends that have been wonderful through this whole thing. And prayer, a lot of prayer. That was the tragic case of Taylor Escontrias. A life cut short by violence and a justice system grappling with the complexities of intent and memory under the shadow of extreme intoxication. This is Tony Stone, and I'll see you in the next one.